everybody needs their therapeutic outlet to cope with the vicissitudes of life. And for you, probably as it is with me, yours is footy. Were you always a Footscray supporter and then later a Western Bulldogs supporter?
Oh, look, I've been supporting the club since I was 6 years old. My brother and I made a pact in blood, and we did when he was 7 and I was 6, and we decided there and then we're going to barrack for the Dogs, because my father was a North Melbourne supporter and I never did as I was told, and he wanted me to barrack for them, and I said, no, I like red, white and blue, Dad. So that's how it all started. It's a very simple explanation, the three colours, red, white and blue, and then I became to love them, and I loved the team and the club, and played footy with my brother in the backyard, the Whitten Oval, or Western Oval it was called, kick to kick. So it's been a passion of mine for more than 60 years.
But you got to teenagehood and then you were told you're not going to be able to continue playing football, Sue Alberti.
That broke my heart. My father made me hang up my boots at 15 because I gave as good as I got. I was pretty rough, tough, and that's what you had to do in football. I was playing against boys, but 15-year-olds are really men. And Dad said it's enough, but I was always sad about it. Why should I have to give up playing football because I couldn't, there was nowhere else to go? Why should women have to put up with this? So it's been a burning passion and desire of mine for many, many years that if I can make a difference and give women an opportunity, I'll do so. And I had been following women's football for years and years, but sort of on the periphery, not sort of up front, just checking out what was going on.
And then you became, and it's completely understandable given what you've just said, you became a prime mover in the establishment of the National AFL Women's League, along with Gil and McLaughlin. Was Gil the right man for the time, or was it the right time, as opposed to several years before when Andrew Demetriou was the head of the AFL?
Well, Andrew wasn't particularly interested in women's football, let's just say that. Not particularly interested because I talked to him about it. When I went to see Gil and McLaughlin, he knew this was building, this momentum was building because of women playing football out there in the VWFL, and he knew then I was behind them financially to get them on the field and get them to employ some staff. And of course I have sponsored the Western Bulldogs girls team. And of course Melbourne were wonderful too, they found a sponsor at Melbourne. When I went to see Gil, I said, Gil, I want to have a breakfast and I want to highlight women playing football. I thought, yes, I'll be showing the door. It was 3 days before Christmas. And I thought, he's not going to listen to me after my other experience. He said, what do you need? I said, I need you on such and such a day. Okay, it's in the diary. Where do you want me? I'm sort of thinking then, is he for real? I don't think he realises this. And he said, what else do you need? Oh, I said, I'd need some media help and blah, blah, blah. He said, I'll call in my team. Do it. Do what she needs. Help her. Turned up at the breakfast. He also said he was scared of me. No, I don't think he was. He did say that. He said, I'm scared of her.
He's scared of too many.
No, he's a gorgeous man. And he is a champion of change. Gil and McLaughlin has been the person to make the difference with women's football. Maybe I was the catalyst with the financial support I gave. I was outspoken about it. Women should be given an opportunity. I did all of that. But Gillan was the one that could see it was good business, good marketing, great for the AFL, and let's face it, he is a champion of change.
Yes, one of Liz Broderick's champions of change.
Right, yes.
And he lives it.
He does live it. Sam Mostyn was sensational as a commissioner. She supported women, honestly, feather in her cap.
She was groundbreaking herself.
She was. She's an unbelievable woman. I've got enormous respect for Sam. There's lots of women out there that have made a difference. I guess just by what I did, it brought it more to the forefront a bit earlier. Gillan took a real punt when he brought it forward, 2020 to 2017. You see now what's happening. It's just, as Gil says, it's a revolution. There's no stopping it. It's like a steam train. It's just not stopping. And the stats that I'm privy to now, being on the advisory, it just is staggering what's going on with women's sport and women's football. So it's more than sport. It's about women.
It is.
Giving women the platform that they deserve. When I think back 55 years ago and I had to hang up my boots, I never thought this would happen in my lifetime. I never ever thought I'd see the day where women would be given this opportunity to play the game that they love or any other sport that they like playing.
Gil himself has had more than a few troubles over the last few weeks. the accepting of those resignations for those general managers and what happened a few weeks before with Ali Fahour.
Yes.
How far do you think a champion of change, whether it's in the cause of equity or anything else, should go in order to be able to put a stake in the ground for culture?
Well, I think Gil is working very hard on that. We have seen slow change, but change is happening. I know at my own club, where I've just stepped down as Vice President, the acceptance of women into AFL, particularly I can speak on behalf of the Western Bulldogs because I've lived the dream there. 4 women on the board out of a 9-member board. We're the only club in the AFL that's ever had 4 women on the board. The acceptance of women for their skills. It's not because we're women, it's because we're good at what we do, and the President acknowledges that, and the men are equally as supportive as the women. So from my own perspective with the Western Bulldogs, it's been a remarkable change. Most of our senior staff there are women. So in terms of AFL, when I first started off on the board in 2004, I think we had 7 women in the AFL on boards. Now we have over 40. So it's evolving, it's changing for the better. And I think Gil there as the CEO, he's making things happen. And also I feather in the cap to Richard Goyder. Richard Goyder is a leader too. He's a tremendous leader and very supportive of women. He's a no-nonsense man. He's always about the right person for the job. So I feel very confident with Gil and Richard at the helm. We're seeing big changes with the AFL. I think it's following through in other places as well.
You mentioned no nonsense. Yes. I understand that there was a meeting of senior executives you went to one time where a female who was present at that meeting was sort of cut down or interrupted. I don't know whether or not we'd call it mansplaining, whether he was actually mansplaining and trying to interpret what he thought she was actually saying on her behalf without permission, or whether he was just man-terrupting. But if the rumours are true, you cut him down and made it very clear to him.
I told him to shut up. I'm not afraid. I said, let her finish, because the woman that was speaking is a very softly spoken lady, very serious about everything, and a very smart lady. I won't say who it was. And she was trying to explain her position and he cut her down. I said, shut up and let her talk. Well, he finished up. Anyhow, we're friends now, but...
you got past.
Yeah, I'm a no-nonsense person, I just think, let her finish what she has to say. But when I walked out of that meeting, I felt like I'd been in the school principal's office. How dare I be treated like that? I had an opinion, and I'm very respectful. I'm not rude to people. But that was the impression I got when I walked in. How dare I have an opinion? Oh, I support women, and my wife had breast cancer, and blah, blah, blah. It was nothing to do with breast cancer. It was to do with we had an opinion about something we felt was wrong, it hadn't been addressed properly, and we should never have had to go to that meeting. We were described as, we're representing our clubs. No, we weren't representing our clubs. We were representing ourselves. We had an opinion about something and we felt it was wrong what was happening. And to this day, I'll continue to say it was wrong what happened to that journalist, the way she was singled out. It's about respect.
Talking about Caroline Wilson now?
Yes.
And Channel 9.
Yes. It was very disrespectful and it was unnecessary. So we were hauled in because we had an opinion. How dare we have an opinion? Well, I'll be damned. If I've got an opinion and I think I'm right, I will speak out, but I'll certainly be very respectful though. I'm not a rude person.
Did you get any feedback or any criticism from people who imagined, and sort of a bit hashtag irony, because you've been extremely successful and comfortably off through your success, not because anyone handed anything to you and Angelo, but were there people who imagined that you actually sued Channel 9 and took on Sam Newman and the Footy Show because either you wanted the publicity of it or because you wanted the money, or did they really get why you felt you had to fight that fight?
I never wanted the money. In fact, it never touched my bank account. It went straight to medical research because during that action, I was fighting for my life with cancer. I gave back to say thank you. I didn't want the publicity. I've never wanted the publicity. I've been a person that does everything behind the scenes. I make things happen, like with government lobbying, diabetes research. I've never wanted to be a public face, ever. That's never been my persona. I've always liked to do things, make things happen behind the scenes, get people involved, then move on to the next project. That's what I've done throughout my whole life. But that brought me to the forefront. But that was something that was unacceptable. And it cast dispersions upon me, which were untrue. And I thought, enough is enough. I was warned by so many people, the establishment. You realise who you're taking on. You realise if you lose, you'll be your costs, their costs. I said, this is something I have to do. I've had enough of this. And that's why it was nothing to do with publicity. People would never have heard of me up until that point in time. But I'd been doing a lot behind the scenes, making things happen in medical research, which is something I really love. Yeah.
And sometimes the motives that people actually ascribe to somebody's actions are more a reflection of where they're at and what they might actually want to achieve than necessarily the person who's doing them. But I can't help but thinking, because this burning question around resilience and what creates mental toughness or bounce back ability in some people that others just can't find, is that you were, by your own admission just now, fighting for your life. And yet in terms of your emotional budget, you could have said, I've got so many withdrawals on that emotional budget right now. I need to be depositing. I can't be taking on something or someone else. And yet you decided to do it anyway.
Yes. I often question myself as to why how I was able to get through it all. But I think it's from my youth, the tough life I had. Also, my very, very best friend was raped and murdered, and that was something that has stayed with me forever. And that was a dreadful experience. And I think if I hadn't have played sport and Dad had encouraged me into playing sport, God only knows what would have happened with me in the area that I grew up in. I think it made me tough. I became very resilient when I was younger. And it definitely was the hard school of knocks where I grew up. Most of the kids around me were had wealthy families, and I didn't have it. But it never bothered me.
In psychology, we differentiate between the person who's able actually to find resilience and the person who actually understands that they can call on their resilience when they need to.
Yes.
So they start to actually develop a belief that no matter what actually comes at me, I can deal with it.
Precisely.
And it's even been given an adjective Phelpsian, because it's sort of the Michael Phelps attitude to smashing your head with somebody else in the training pool before a meet. And I believe that even if I've got blurred vision or concussion, whatever life actually dishes up, I believe in terms of my identity, I can cope. And that's often what carries that person through. But they have to have been challenged and known they could meet the challenge.
Oh, definitely. And I've had many challenges. Many challenges throughout my life, but I'm so grateful for the life that I've got, and to be given a second chance. That's when you get told you're close to death, you do reevaluate your life and you think, well, what's it all about? We're all going to go sooner or later. But I want to make sure that I've had a very fulfilling life, and I believe I have, and I continue to still give back, which is what satisfies me. And I enjoy challenges too. That's what keeps me going, challenges.
And the giving back includes mentorship.
Yes.
Yeah, Australia Day 2016, you won Companion of the Order of Australia. That was bestowed upon you.
Yes, thank you.
For your contribution to the community and to young people. I have a confession to make. I cried my way through the Australian Story episode.
It was beautiful.
Involving the burgeoning, blossoming relationship between you and Moana Hope, who's now, of course, a marquee player for Collingwood Football Club in the Women's League, something you helped create. And I thought to myself, regardless of your humble beginnings, I couldn't actually imagine two women who were probably more different than you and Mo Hope, and yet you just seem to have an ability to strike a rapport.
I love Mo.
With anybody. With anybody.
She and I grew up in she grew up in Glenroy, and she had to hide her footballs because whenever she was kicking them, the kids had pinched them. And I know exactly what it was like, because it would happen to me if I didn't hide my football. But, you know, she might have the tats, but those tats, every one of them means something to her, one being her father. And when you see her dab, it's not about dabbing, it's about kissing her dad. You know, there's so much to that young woman. She's just so special. She is exactly as you see her and hear her speak. She's got a heart of gold, a wonderful daughter and sister, and I love Mo. She's like a daughter to me. She's not a replacement, by the way. All the young women who play AFL football are like my family. I love them all. But Mo's a pretty special lady, you know, because of the hard school of knock she came from. So we really enjoy one another's company. I had afternoon tea with her just recently. The first time she had afternoon tea with me, high tea, she said, "Sue, what is it?" I had to Google it. So she turned up in her sporting gear. I didn't say anything at a hotel. I had no idea. And then she came the next time, beautifully dressed. So she's learning, and she's just beautiful. All the appearances she's done and how she's been paid. She's given the money to her mum to put a deposit on her home because her mum's never had her own home. So Mo's a very, very beautiful young lady. But there's more stories like Mo out there that I get to meet all these young women. I love them so much because they love the game so much. I'll play it for nothing if just given an opportunity. And now they've been given an opportunity and they now have a league of their own.
And that mentorship and that connection with young people that I've seen in you when we've met before, that's not exclusive to women. I remember watching coverage of one of the Western Bulldogs games towards the end of last year when they were in the final season and leading up to the grand final. And there you were at the top of the race and Marcus Bontempelli runs past, just stops and gives you a hug all sweaty and dirty.
He's gorgeous. In fact, 2 weeks ago he couldn't kick for love nor money. He kept hitting the post. I went into the rooms afterwards and I walked down there, saw Ruffy, who I love, Ruffy, and he said Bonty said to me, "Sue, can you give me a cuddle? I've had a really bad day." 21 years old. I said, "What do you think? I'm your mother." But that's the sort of rapport I have with the players. I love the young men. Yeah. They're so respectful to me and others, of course, but they're just young men. That's all they are. And a bit of mothering doesn't hurt, and I think they're gorgeous. Yeah.
Can you give me a hug? I love that from Bonds. There would be plenty of other people who'd be happy to oblige,
but he's so
but he
tall.
wants a hug from you.
I'm so short, and Ruffy too. You know, he coaches the girls, and they love him, and there's such fine young men. They're more than footballers. Yes. They're just great leaders in our community now, and I hope more and more of them, as they're coming through, will be leaders in the community. We need our children to have models to look up to.
They do, and in a country, and particularly in a state where people are so passionate about sport,
yes,
I think it's reasonable for us to ask these high-profile people, with the amount of money they get paid,
yes,
and the rewards and the privilege that go with those roles, to try to set a good example. And yet maybe sometimes I feel, do we have the right to actually ask that of them? They just simply happen to be exceptional athletes. Does that necessarily mean they have to be role models?
They don't have to, but they want to.
They want to, and you want them to, and I want them to.
I do,
yes.
And it's wonderful to see them go to schools in the west of Melbourne and encourage our children to get off the couch. We've got a lot of obesity in the west of Melbourne. Look at these fit, healthy men and women. You look at the female footballers, they've got beautiful bodies. They're not anorexic. They're strong and healthy and beautiful, fit young women. Fit young men, you know, good healthy bodies. And it worries me about our children with the obesity epidemic and our children putting on weight and not playing sport like they used to. And if we can have these footballers go out and be role models, well, we're achieving something really special.
And you can't teach character. And these days it seems as if the ones that are given those senior leadership roles in the playing group and as captains of clubs, yes, are actually chosen not just for their ability,
exactly,
and not just for their courage, yes, on the ground, but what they actually stand for,
exactly,
as human beings.
Leadership.
Yes, yes. If you were to describe your leadership, if you were to be up on the balcony looking down at you on the stage, while you were moving all of these mountains and securing this funding and lobbying government, how would you describe your leadership style? Because that's something that so many of my clients are trying to grow in terms of their competence. It's a core competence for people who want to achieve.
It's a difficult one, but I think I would say I lead by example. I don't expect anyone else to do something that I wouldn't do. My own staff, I've always got an open door. I'm always ready to talk. If there's something not they're not happy about. And I've had staff with me that have been over 30 years, they've been working with me, so it says something. I've always got the open door policy. I'm always ready to talk. I try very hard to lead by example. I also try to be always honest. I don't pretend to be something I'm not. As you look at me today, that's who I am. I'm always honest when I'm asked questions. If people are not happy with that, well, I'm sorry. That's just who I am. I'll answer you honestly. It's not a facade. And I try really, really hard to encourage people to be the best they possibly can. And if I can help them, if they come to me for help, I'm always there to help them and encourage them to be the best that they possibly can. And that's what it's all about, to be the best you can.
Okay. Probably my last question. You sold or divested the construction arm of the business 10 years ago. You mentioned that before. And you made sure that all of those people had jobs.
All 300.
All 300 of them had jobs because you said you believed that that's what Angelo would
exactly.
want you to do. What about the next 10 years for Sue Alberti? Because I can't just imagine that you and Colin North, your very grounded and extremely supportive husband, will just fade off into the sunset and live any sort of a cruisy life anytime soon. What's next? And will there ever be just me time for Sue Alberti?
In the next 10 years, I really want to see women's football established, because that's something I've lived a lifetime waiting to see that happen.
Can you put in a good word for St Kilda for a women's licence?
They're doing quite nicely. They just didn't have the talent at the time, but I think they'll be all right, trust me. I would like to see within the next 5 years, and I'll be working hard to see all clubs have a team, women's team. And I think that rightly so, that should occur, and I'm sure the AFL would like that too, but we've got to get it right. We've got to have a spread of talent. We can't have teams that are not up to standard.
Yes.
We've got to have sponsorships in place. We've got to have facilities, infrastructure, wages, remuneration. All of that's got to come into play, and I see that happening, all this evolving over the next 5 years. So I hope I can be part of that to ensure that our women are properly remunerated. I want the next generation to know you can achieve anything if you put your mind to it. If you really put your mind to something and you really got a dream and you follow it, you can achieve it, because I know how hard it was for me when I was a young kid. I never thought I'd get to where I am today. I dreamt of it. When I look back now in retrospect, and I think, my goodness, it's been a journey, a long journey, but it's been a good one. Yeah.
So I can't thank you enough.
Thanks, it's a pleasure, Leanne.
Thank you.